Hello, church. Good to be with you today as we are there, the book of Revelation. We have finished the book of Daniel. We have finished the destruction of Jerusalem, and now we are ready for the book of Revelation. And I pray that those books prior to this have helped us, those studies, to prepare us for this book. Now, let me just ask you a question. I was ask you, what is the hardest book in the Bible to understand for you personally? And most people will say the book of Revelation. It's also a book that many people skip over. What we find is we find in our religious world when our religious world takes a book out of its context and doesn't mess with it, the church is apt to just go all the other way and just not talk about it. We do the same thing with the Holy Spirit, right? And that's so wrong. We need the book of Revelation and we need to understand it. And I love to teach it. It is just an unbelievable book. So, to help us, this is going to be our introduction class to Revelation. And we are going to look at 7 basic principles in understanding this book. Now, I believe if we can understand these 7 principles and keep these principles in line every time we approach the book, this book will be a piece of cake. If we don't, then we're going to end up out left field somewhere. We're going to be off here and we're going to be over there, and it's going to be an absolute mess. But if we can hold these 7 principles and remember them, then we're going to get this book. Now, when I was studying at Sunset School of Preaching, Richard Rogers taught us this class. And when he taught us this class, his beginning statement was, this is one of the easiest books in the Bible to understand. And when I first started with him, I didn't agree with him. But by the time we got to the end, I was in line with him. And so I do believe this is an easy book to understand for the most part. So let's see if that's true. Let's get started today. So we want to understand this book of Revelation. Here's principle number 1. What is the book of Revelation about? Well, what do most people say? And it's about the end of the time, right? The end of the days. It's a great tribulation. It's the rapture. It's the 666. The Antichrist is coming. All these different theories. Just to let you know, the word Antichrist is never found in the book of Revelation. So, anyways, that's just little trivia for you. What is this book about? Are you sure it's about those things? Well, let's just make it easy. The answer is found in the book, and it's found in its first verse. Here it is. The revelation of Jesus Christ. In this book, Jesus is being revealed. Okay? And we will see that when we go through this book, there are over 99 verses that refer to Jesus. And what we're going to see is we're going to see a picture of Jesus like you will never see in any other book. It's kind of like taking Jesus out of the box. We do this with God, don't we? We put God in a box. We get him all figured out. We think, okay, you can do this. You can do this. You can only go this far. We've got you all figured out. When you get to this book of Revelation, you think you've got Jesus all figured out? Wow, it is just going to explode, and you're going to see so many different sides of Jesus. It's going to be unbelievable. So, if you miss Jesus in this book and him being revealed, then you have missed the purpose and the intent of why the book of Revelation was written. Principle number 2. Who is the book written to? Now, this is really important because what it'll do is this will keep us in context. Yeah, say somebody's going to write a letter and they're going to write it to Mike. Now, say that letter comes to me. I'm James, okay? I'm James Sanderson. And that letter comes to me. I got it by mistake. And I start reading and go, this don't make sense to me. I don't remember any of this stuff. This doesn't even have anything to do with me. Then this letter would be a mess. And we do that with books of the Bible. We read them with our minds, instead of understanding that they were written to specific people, and thus we need to put ourselves in their shoes and their situations, and then those books will make sense. When we don't do that, it becomes a mess, and we can just go all over the place. So let's find out who this book was written to. It's in chapter 1, verses 10 and 11. On the Lord's day, I was in the Spirit. Now, this is John. This is the Apostle John. This is this being revealed to him, okay? And I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet, which said, "Write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia." That's not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by the way. And Laodicea. So that is who this letter was specifically written to, those 7 churches. Now let me show you on a map where those 7 churches are. Here's a modern day map. This is Greece over here, okay, to the left, my left, okay. And over here in the middle is modern day Turkey. And this was known back during Bible times as Asia Minor. And those 7 churches are all found right in that place. And to get a little bit closer, here they are. You've got Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Now, if you'll notice, just down the street is Colossae, and Colossae wasn't included. Now, they're going to have their own letter, the book of Colossians, but just these 7 churches were used in this letter. So that's principle number 2. First one was, what's a book written? What's a book about? It's about revealing Jesus. And second of all, who's the book written to? 7 churches of Asia. The third principle is, what's the situation? What's the context? What is going on with those 7 churches of Asia? And see, that brings us to the meat of the letter, right? What's the letter about? What's happening within this letter to these 7 churches of Asia? Well, let's find out. It starts over here in chapter 1, verse 9. It says, I, John, here's the Apostle John again. I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation. I always find that interesting. Many of our religious friends tell us that the book of Revelation is about the tribulation that hasn't taken place yet. And yet John says, I am a partner with you, the 7 churches of Asia, in the tribulation. That's written in the present tense. I'm in the tribulation with you now. And also, our religious friends also teach, coinciding with the book of Revelation, that the kingdom isn't here yet and it's not accessible yet. Jesus hasn't set up his kingdom yet. But wait a minute. He's not only a partner in the tribulation, but he's also a partner in the kingdom. That means John's in the kingdom, and so are the 7 churches of Asia. It's already happened. Boy, somebody missed their Bible, didn't they? And then he says, and patient endurance that are in Jesus was on the island of Patmos. So where's John? On this island. That's where he's writing this letter. Back to the mainland. I'm going to show you a picture of that in just a minute. And why is he there? On account of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. Here's the island of Patmos. It's not all those sandy beaches, and it's just a bunch of rocks. It's a rock island. There's some people that live there, but it's not one of them big, beautiful islands with all the beaches and trees and palm trees and all that. It's a rock island. And during the time of John and when this book was written, this was used by the Romans as a prison island. And so John is being persecuted here. He is in the tribulation with them, okay? And here is some pictures of the actual prison where that was cut out of these rocks where these prisoners would stay that belonged to the Roman Empire, okay? Because Rome rules this whole area. So John's being persecuted. And there's the island right there. It's in that little white box right in the middle there. It's just off in the Mediterranean Sea. It's just off the coast. So he's over here on this island. He's writing back to the mainland and sending this letter to the 7 churches of Asia. Okay? So he's being persecuted. But so are they. When he writes over here to one of those 7 churches, Jesus writes to them, And he specifically talks to one of those 7 churches in verse 9. He says, I know your tribulation. Okay, Jesus knows that. And your poverty. But you are rich. Why? Because they're Christians. They're rich spiritually. And the slander of those who say they are Jews, but are of the synagogue of Satan. So here's these people who are Jewish, right? And they are persecuting these Christians because they don't believe Jesus has come, right? And so they're being persecuted. He says, don't fear what you're about to suffer. That means that their suffering is going to get worse. Behold, the devil's about to throw some of you into prison, and you will be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Now, in this book, we're going to learn about numbers. We're going to learn about colors and things like that, animals, pictures, and we'll get to that later. But they are suffering, and they're going to suffer even more. In fact, in years to come, just short years after this, they're going to build the Colosseum in Rome, and many Christians will die in that Colosseum for being Christians. The Roman Caesars, especially Domitian, that we're going to look at eventually in the book of Revelation, is going to kill so many Christians that it says that Rome literally ran out of lumber because so many people were crucified. There's accounts in history of taking Christians and dipping them in oil and putting them up on these crosses and then lighting their streets at night with their bodies. And that's what John's talking about. Things are bad, and they're going to get worse. Here's your letter. In fact, in chapter 2, verse 13, to one of those churches, he says, I know where you live, where Satan has his throne, yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives. Christians are dying here, and more are going to die in the future. That's the context of this letter. That's the situation that's going on. Now, you just think about that. How many of our religious friends are pointing to the future, the future, the future, this tribulation that's coming, this terrible thing that's going to happen? Wait a minute. It's happening way back during the book of Revelation. Okay? Principle number 4. We know what it was written about. It was written about Jesus and him being revealed. Number 2, who's it written to? The 7 churches of Asia. Number 3, what's the situation? Persecution. And number 4 is Revelation is a picture book. So many times, it's a way of writing. You're just going to get picture after picture after picture. Now watch these pictures. You're going to get pictures of all kinds. This book is also going to use animals. They're all going to have meanings. They're going to have colors, all kinds of different colors, which they will have meanings. And you will have numbers. Now here's what you need to do. We're going to let the Bible interpret the Bible. How does God use animals in the Bible? Do word studies on them, then apply that to Revelation where that same animal is used and go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, how are numbers used? Well, this number is used for this reason and this reason and this reason. They all have meanings. Apply it to Revelation. Oh, that makes sense. Do that with the animals, the colors, and the pictures. Let the Bible interpret the Bible, and this book will make sense. Does that make sense? I hope so. So let's just look at a couple pictures of Jesus. Since we were on the subject of Jesus, let's look at some pictures of him. In chapter 1, here's a picture of what we get. He is walking among the 7 churches of Asia. And notice how they are pictured as 7 golden lampstands. Now just step back for a minute and look at that picture. Golden lampstand. Here's a church. Oh, gold. It's precious. Is the church precious to Jesus? To God? Yes, absolutely. And they're lampstands. What does the church do? Give off light, right? To the world? Oh, boy, that makes sense. And guess who is walking among the churches? Jesus. Oh, that is so cool to know that he is right there with us through persecution, death, plagues, the coronavirus. He's right there with us. You know what Richard Rodgers used to do? He'd take his family, and there were 16 of them. They would go out to a restaurant in Lubbock, Texas, with all the kids, grandkids, and everything. Every time he went to that restaurant, he would ask for a table for 17, because he would always leave a chair for Jesus. Just a picture to let him know and his family that Jesus is with us. And we need to know that. So do they. And then he's pictured as wearing a white robe, right? Purity, sinless, golden sash around his chest, royalty, white hair. He's been around, Ancient of Days, right? Wisdom, eyes of fire. When he speaks, it's like rushing waters of like a waterfall. So it just shows that authority. He's got a tongue with double-edged sword, right? And he's got boots of bronze. He can stomp out our problems. Do you see the picture? So just step back and look at the picture. Now, is that literal? No, I don't think it's literal at all. It's figurative. It's a picture. But to show that it's not literal and cannot be literal, look at chapter 5. Now we come to the throne room and we see an entirely different picture of Jesus. It's the Lamb, and this Lamb looks as if he had been slain. Now, if you slay a lamb, what's going to happen to this lamb? It's going to be fallen over, right? But not in this picture. He is standing. What does that show you? That he is what? That shows the resurrection. Slain represents a cross. Standing represents he raised from the grave. And then he has 7 horns. Now you do a word study on horns through the Bible, and you see that horns actually represent authority. And how many horns does he have? 7. So 7 has a meaning, right? What day was the world completed on? Day 7. It means complete. So Jesus has what? Complete authority. And he has how many eyes? 7. That means he can completely see everything. That includes your persecution. That includes your struggles, my struggles. He sees it all. That's important for the 7 churches of Asia about what they're going to go through. And we can apply that to our lives and know that Jesus is still the same Jesus and applies to us too. Does that make sense? Piece of cake. Now we're going to go over to chapter 19 and we're going to see a different picture of Jesus and watch another side of Jesus. Now, this is after Rome has been destroyed, which is persecuting the 7 churches of Asia, okay? And it says, then the angel said to me, write, blessed are those who are invited to the wedding supper of the Lamb. When it's all said and done, you're blessed if you get to come to the wedding supper of the Lamb. And he added, these are the true words of God. What do you think about that? Having the right to sit at a table with Jesus. The wedding supper, right? That we are with him and united with him, almost in a marriage. And isn't that what we have in Christ? We get to sit at this table. We get to share our joy with him. That is blessings. And the 7 churches of Asia need to know that, and so do we. And then you see here the triumph of the Lamb. In verse 11 it says, and I saw heaven standing open. So this paints this picture of what Jesus can do against our enemies. So heaven's open. And there before me was what? A white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. Now we're going to see another white horse with Jesus riding on that in chapter 6. But this is the end of the story. With justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are like blazing fire. On his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows but himself. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. So who is this? Who is this that rides on this horse? You've got this white horse. This is a victory or war horse. And again, it's white. Purity, it rules. What's his name? Faithful and true. Is Jesus not faithful? Does he keep his promises? Is he true? Absolutely. Remember when Jesus asked Pilate, what questions do you have for me? And he asked, what is truth? Pilate asked. And Jesus never answered him. Pilate asked, what is truth? Because Jesus is truth. I'm standing right in front of you. And who is this Jesus? Does he make war? Now that takes Jesus out of the box. Have you ever pictured Jesus making war with the inhabitants of this earth? He has eyes of fire. Maybe this shows a little difference of maybe a little different meaning of that. It's just that authority and that power. He sees everything. He wears many crowns. This is the victory crown. His robe is dipped in blood. Does it speak of the cross and him dying and it's overcoming the cross? But does it also mean when he makes war with people? But at all times he is victorious, and his name is the Word of God. So this has to be Jesus. That's John chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. This has got to be Jesus on this horse, right? And then it says the armies of heaven were following him, riding on white horses and dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Isn't that what we get? Forgiven, purity, white and clean. And out of his mouth comes a sharp sword, which to strike down the nations. Does his words have authority? Can he just strike them down? Remember that song we sing? He could have called 10,000 angels. With that authority, could he have done that? Absolutely, he could have. That's the authority that Jesus has. And then it says he will rule them with an iron scepter. Where do we see this in the Bible at? This is coming out of Genesis chapter 49 when Jacob blesses his sons and he gets down to the son Judah and he says that he will rule with an iron scepter. Who came from Judah? Jesus. That was pointing to Jesus. This is Jesus. Now watch Jesus. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. You just think of a winepress. And he is treading on that. Get a picture from that. I'm going to show you one in a minute here. On his robes and on his thigh, he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Who's king? Ain't Caesar. No, he can take Caesar out. Remember we learned that in the book of Daniel. He could put kings in, he could take them out. This is Jesus. He's Lord of Lords. He's King of Kings. And how powerfully is he? Just get the picture. Treading the winepress, squishing the grapes with your feet. Do you get that picture? This is a picture of blood. This is a picture of war. And Jesus makes this war with the inhabitants of the earth that turn against him. And in the context, it's the 7 churches of Asia. And as we will see, this is Rome. And I saw an angel standing in the sun who cried in a loud voice to all the birds flying in midair. So here comes all the birds. Come, gather for the great supper of God. Now we've already had one supper. That supper, you were blessed if you sat at that table. But this is another supper. This is the supper of God. That was the supper of the Lamb. Now watch this supper. So that you may eat the flesh of kings and generals and mighty men and horses of their riders and flesh of all people, free and slaves, small and great. What's happening at this supper? These people are going to be eaten in this picture. Can you imagine the birds coming down to the supper of God and they're attacking? And there's those eagles just pulling the flesh and eating it. And who is this? Of kings and of generals and all those people that this world holds in such superiority. But are they? Are we to fear them? No. Those people are in trouble if they don't serve God. They need to fear God because this is a picture of Jesus and this is his power. And then there's a picture of Jesus. Here's another picture. This is over in chapter 6. I know we're bouncing around and stuff. We'll go through all this. This will all come together in one nice fitting picture. Okay. We got a white horse, a black horse, a red horse, and a pale horse. Okay. Where do you get there? Well, the white horse is the one who conquers, and I believe that is Jesus. It's telling the storyline. He's going to conquer. But God allows black, famine, death, red, and pale, people dying in famine, and all these things. This is all mixed in these horses. Even though we conquer, that's the story. We're going to win with Jesus. God will allow these other things to happen while we're on this earth. And it could even result in death. Yes, that's the storyline. But again, you see this picture. And there's a whole lot more to that picture in chapter 6. When you get to chapter 17, towards the end of the book, he's talking about this great prostitute who sits on 7 hills. Now you think about that. Again, a picture. Is this literal? Is a real prostitute going to sit down and sit on 7 hills? Of course this is not literal. But everybody knew that Rome sat on 7 hills. You see that? Rome is the one that's going to persecute these 7 churches of Asia. That's the context, okay? That's who they were dealing with. And she looks like a prostitute, right? Prostitute can sparkle and glitter and look fancy at night, like all these things that she promises. But in the daylight, when you see her in the daylight, you know that those promises are not true. And that's what Rome's doing. Promising all these people all these great things with their wonderful religions and their false gods. And none of that is true. None of those promises are ever going to be kept. And it's false. So that's what she looks like. It's like a prostitute. Empty promises. And then in chapter 20, we get this picture of the lake of fire. You can see the picture. Get the picture. Are these things literal? They're pictures. So look at the picture, get the meaning, and step back. Number 5. So what was the book about? Jesus is being revealed. Number 2, who was the book written to? 7 churches of Asia. What's the situation? Persecution. That's number 3. Number 4, it's a picture book using animals, numbers, colors, and pictures. Pictures, numbers, colors, and animals. There you go. Look at the pictures. Step back. Let the Bible define the Bible. And number 5 is Revelation is an Old Testament book. When we were at Sunset, it took my class asked a lot of questions. Okay, I was in the front. Gerald Payton used to call me the Statue of Liberty because I would come into class with my hand raised. I had questions. I wanted questions. My questions answered. We asked so many questions in class. I thought to myself, man, we get to the book of Revelation. This is one of the hardest books in the Bible to understand. We're never going to get done in time. We have 8 weeks to finish it, and we will not get done in time. I just knew that as a fact. And then we got to the book of Revelation, and we ended a week and a half early. We never ended early in any class. We were done in a week and a half early. Nobody was asking questions. It all flowed and made sense. You know why? Because, see, 80% of all the verses in Revelation make reference to the Old Testament. There's all these different pictures of the Old Testament. And so when we asked our questions, we were asking our questions back in the book of Ezekiel, the book of Daniel, the book of Isaiah, Jeremiah, the minor prophets. That's where we asked our questions at. So once we understood how the pattern of the Bible works, we got to Revelation. Here's a piece of cake. And we got done early. When we see letters written to the 7 churches of Asia, some of those stories, one of the stories is going to use the story of Balaam and his donkey. If you don't understand the basic principles of Balaam and his donkey, what was going on, then you're not going to know how to apply that to one of the 7 churches of Asia where God is talking to them and know how to apply that. And if you don't know how to apply that, then you're going to be messed up in your application, and then the book is not going to make sense. So when we get there, we're going to go back and look at Balaam and his donkey and what was going on then. How about this rainbow in chapter 4? We see a throne room scene of a rainbow behind the throne of God. Where do you find a rainbow at? Old Testament. Go back to Genesis 6, 7, 8, 9, and read the story of the flood. And God said that he would put a rainbow in the sky, right, to remind the world that he would never flood the entire earth again. Now, has he kept his promise? He has. Now, go to the throne room of God and see why is there a rainbow in behind the throne? Because what is God saying? I keep my promises. I am true. I am faithful. That's important to know if you're being persecuted by the Roman Empire or whoever else. Just a picture. Oh, and then we're going to see Jezebel, right? She's being thrown out of a window here. We're going to learn about that story because that story is applied to one of the 7 churches of Asia. If you don't understand the story there, then you're it's not going to have the meaning that it needs to have when you get to Revelation. It's going to talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, right? You're going to have a basic understanding of those tribes and what those tribes represented. Just picture after picture after picture from the Old Testament. That's principle number 5. It's an Old Testament book. If you don't have a basic understanding of your Old Testament, the book of Revelation won't make sense because it makes so many applications back to the Old Testament. Number 6, principle number 6, Revelation is a futuristic book. Now, it is pointing to the future, but let's see how far. When we get to the book of Revelation, this is what we find. In Revelation 1:1, it says these things that must soon take place. The time is near, verse 3. Chapter 2:16 says, I will soon come to you, right? And then in chapter 22, the last chapter of our Bible, the last chapter of Revelation, he says, things that will soon take place. I'm coming soon. The time is near, soon and soon. Now, is somebody trying to make a point here? Soon, the time is near, it's at hand? I think so. Beginning of the book, chapter 2, and at the end of the book. When we went through Daniel, we saw that Daniel was told to seal up this book in chapter 12, verses 4 through 10. Because a lot of the things that Daniel was told about are going to be so far to the future, it's going to be past his lifetime, and he will never see them. So God tells him, take the book up, seal it, and go your way. Because it's far to the future, okay? He won't see those things. He won't see the fulfillment of those things. And here's the verses. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me in chapter 12, verse 5, stood 2 others, one on the bank of the river and one on the opposite bank. One of them said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, how long will it be before these astonishing things are fulfilled? The man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, lifted his right hand and his left towards heaven, and I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, it will be for a time, times, and half a time, when the power of the holy people will finally broken, all these things will be completed. That was pointing to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Okay? That's way to Daniel's future. He will never see those things. And then he ends up in verse 8. He says, I heard, but I did not understand. So I asked, my Lord, what will be the outcome of all this? What will the outcome of all this be? He replied, go your way, Daniel, because the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end. This isn't the end of time. This is the context of what we were looking at in the book of Daniel. Right? When it happens, then it will be unsealed in a sense because it will all make sense. Jesus coming, the crucifixion, the resurrection, the day of Pentecost, and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. All that happened way to Daniel's future. Many will be purified, made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand, because they use their Bible and they put it together. And we got the end of the story, don't we? There you go. So Daniel is a sealed book. It was far to the future. Daniel, his last writings are in 535 BC, and the fulfillment of those things that he is being told about will not be fulfilled until Jesus comes and his death in 29 AD and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And we've already went through that. A sealed book, far to the future. Go your way. It's beyond your lifetime. Seal it up. But when we get to Revelation, this is an unsealed book. Okay? We see this in chapters 5 and 6 and chapters 22, verse 10. Because this is to the future, yes, but it's short to the future. It's going to happen in their lifetime. It's going to happen to them because he's writing to them about events that's going to take place to them. Does that make sense? Then I saw in his right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaim in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside of it. This is Revelation chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Verse 4 says, "I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, 'Do not weep. See, the Lion from the tribe of Judah,'" Genesis chapter 49, point of Jesus, "the root of David," that's Isaiah 11, verse 1 and following, come from Jesse, David's dad, "has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and open it and see its 7 seals." There you go. This is an unsealed book. This book is being opened and revealed. Why? Because this is short to the future, right? Written, we're going to see this. It's going to date the book between 69 and 79 AD, and it's going to be fulfilled by 81 and 96 AD. Short to the future. Unsealed book. Does that make sense? Yes. So futuristic, yes, but short to the future, because why? Those things will happen soon. Near, it's at hand. God was making a point. And principle number 7. Here's the last one. Don't make your picture too small. So we're looking at all these pictures in Revelation. So I just thought I'd just grab a picture and just look at the picture and you tell me, what do you find that really sticks out in this picture? And a lot of the ladies usually pick out one of the flowers. They love the flowers. Okay, maybe the purple flowers. Maybe it was the red ones. Okay. So here you're in the book of Revelation, and you see something. You see, oh, look at this. And you pick that out and you home in on that. And you really focus on that. And you really make it your focus. But see, what you need to do is you need to step back. You need to step back and look at the bigger picture. And what do you see? Oh, wait a minute. This picture is much bigger. Now, what's going on here? Oh, it's summertime. Oh, you might see people inside of the house, right? Oh, they're having maybe a family reunion. You can see maybe cars parked in the driveway, right? Yeah, you know it's summer because there's not snow on the ground, right? Maybe see kids playing in the background. Oh, those are so-and-so's grandkids. And you see a lot more going on. Oh, there was just a storm. Maybe the roof was damaged a little bit, okay? So you get more of the picture. So in the book of Revelation, don't make your picture too small. Step back and look at the bigger picture. Because if we get caught up in these little pictures, oh, it'll just ruin our day and we'll lose the whole context of the book. Does that make sense? Hope so. So, don't make your picture too small. So, if we will do that, And we will practice those 7 principles. What's the book written about? The revealing of Jesus Christ. Who's it written to? The 7 churches of Asia. What's the situation? They're being persecuted. John's being persecuted. They're being persecuted, and it's going to get worse. Number 4, it's a picture book. It's going to use pictures, numbers, colors, and animals. Let the Bible interpret the Bible and figure out what these numbers and how God uses these colors and pictures throughout the Bible, and then apply that. Number 5 is that it is an Old Testament book. So you have to have a basic understanding of the Old Testament because 80% of the verses make reference back to the Old Testament. You've got to have a basic understanding of the Old Testament. Number 6 is a futuristic book, but it's short to the future, not far to the future. And number 7, don't make your picture too small. Step back and look at the bigger picture. And if you apply that, this book will make sense, and we will not lose our minds as we go through it. Church, I hope this helped you. We're going to have fun. It's going to be great. And here's the thing, though. Just make sure you don't get invited to the supper of God. Where there's going to be all this judgment. Make sure that you get to sit at the wedding supper of the Lamb. That's the one we want to be in. And if we're there, no matter what happens to us, we will be okay. God bless you. Stay safe. And keep your eyes on Jesus. We'll see you next time.